Jake was a single dad who lived on the edge of a small mountain town. His life was simple but tough. Early mornings, greasy hands, and long nights fixing cars in his tiny garage. His daughter Lily, only 8 years old, was the light of his world. Every day after finishing school, she would sit in a corner of the workshop drawing pictures of cars while Jake worked under the hood of another old engine. Life wasn't easy, but Jake never complained. He believed that as long as he had his daughter and his tools, everything else could be handled. That evening, heavy clouds gathered above the mountain road as Jake closed his shop. The rain began to fall hard, hammering against the windshield of his old pickup truck. He knew driving in this weather was risky, but he wanted to get home early to make dinner for Lily. As he drove up the winding road, he noticed the thunder echoing through the hills, and the ground felt unsteady beneath the tires. Then suddenly a deep rumble shook the earth. A landslide came crashing down in front of him, blocking part of the road. Jake slammed the brakes just in time. His heart pounded as mud and rocks rolled down the hillside. Then through the rain and dust he saw it, a sleek black car half buried under debris. Its headlights flickered weakly. Jake jumped out without thinking, slipping in the mud as he ran toward the car. Inside he could barely make out a woman banging against the window, trapped. The door wouldn't open. The rocks had pinned it shut. "Hang on," Jake shouted through the roar of the storm. He grabbed his toolbox from his truck, using a crowbar to pry open the crushed door. The woman's terrified eyes met his. She was shivering, her face pale. "Please, help me," she whispered, her voice breaking through the rain. "I've got you," Jake said firmly. With all his strength, he wrenched the door open just enough to pull her free. She stumbled out, clinging to him as the ground trembled again. Behind them, another wave of mud came crashing down, covering the back of her car completely. Jake wrapped his jacket around her shoulders and guided her toward his truck. "You're safe now," he said, trying to sound calm even though his heart was racing. She was drenched, shaking from the cold but alive. Once inside the truck, she tried to speak, but her voice was weak. "My car, my things, everything's in there." Jake started the engine. "Don't worry about that right now. You're lucky to be breathing. We'll come back for your car when it's safe." He drove slowly through the muddy road until they reached his workshop at the edge of town. The woman sat silently, staring out the window as the rain poured harder. Her clothes were soaked, her elegant heels covered in mud. Jake glanced at her. She didn't look like someone from around here. Her car, her clothes, everything about her screamed city life and luxury. When they arrived, Jake opened the door to his small, warm garage. "You can sit here," he said, offering her a towel. "I'll make some coffee." "Thank you," she murmured softly. I didn't even get your name." "Jake," he said, smiling faintly. "And you?" "Emily," she replied. "Emily Carter." Jake nodded and turned back to his tools, his hands still shaking from the rescue. As he looked out at the storm through the open door, he didn't know that this chance encounter between a humble mechanic and a powerful CEO was just the beginning of a story neither of them could have imagined. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside that little workshop, something new had quietly begun. When Emily opened her eyes the next morning, she found herself lying on a small couch, wrapped in a clean blanket. The soft smell of coffee filled the air, and sunlight peeked through the dusty window blinds. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came back. The landslide, the crash, and the man who had pulled her out of the car just in time. She sat up slowly and looked around. The room was small but cozy. Tools neatly hanging on the wall, an old radio playing soft music, and the sound of someone cooking in the next room. Emily had spent years in high-rise offices, luxury hotels, and expensive apartments, but this simple place felt more real than anything she'd known in a long time. "Good morning," said a cheerful voice. Emily turned and saw a little girl holding a plate with toast and eggs. "Daddy said you should eat something before you go." Emily smiled warmly. "Thank you, sweetheart. What's your name?" "Lily," the girl said proudly. "Daddy says I'm his best helper." Jake walked in, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked surprised to see Emily awake. "Hey, you're up," he said with a smile. "How are you feeling?" "I'm better," she said softly. "You saved my life, Jake. I don't even know how to thank you." He shrugged modestly. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Emily replied, shaking her head. "Not everyone would have risked their life in that storm." Jake didn't answer, but his eyes softened. He handed her a steaming cup of coffee. "Your car's in bad shape, but I'll start working on it today." Might take a few days to fix. Emily hesitated. I can arrange a tow truck to take it to the city, Jake interrupted gently. You won't find one around here for at least a week. Roads are blocked because of the landslide. You'll have to stay until they clear it. She sighed, realizing he was right. Then, I guess I'll be your guest for a while. Jake smiled faintly. You can stay as long as you need. Over the next few days, Emily watched Jake work tirelessly on her car. His hands were rough and covered in grease, but his movements were skilled and confident. Lily followed him everywhere, handing him tools and chatting about school. Emily couldn't help but smile at the bond between father and daughter. It reminded her of everything she'd lost chasing her career. Each evening, they shared dinner together, simple meals but filled with warmth and laughter. Emily found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. She listened to Lily's stories, watched Jake smile at his daughter with quiet pride, and realized how much she had missed the feeling of home. One night, as Jake cleaned his hands after another long day, Emily said quietly, "You could be working in a big garage in the city. You're talented. Why stay here?" Jake looked at her for a moment before replying, "I tried that once. But after Lily's mom passed, I decided she needed a place where life was slower, kinder. The city takes too much and gives too little." His words lingered in her mind long after he said them. By the fourth day, her car was fully repaired. The roads had cleared and it was time for her to leave. Jake stood by as she tested the engine. It purred perfectly. She stepped out holding an envelope filled with cash. "Please take this. It's the least I can do." Jake shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just drive safe." She looked at him, her heart heavy. "You're impossible, Jake," he smiled slightly. "So they tell me." Emily hesitated, then stepped closer. "You know, I might have business in this area again soon." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yeah," she said softly. "And maybe next time I'll stay for coffee." As she drove away down the mountain road, Emily glanced in the mirror. Jake and Lily stood outside the workshop waving. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a CEO rushing to her next meeting. She felt human again, and deep down she knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something unexpected, something real.